Hey YouTube, Warble's on a lot here, making a movie for Earl Portland in response to his clip about celibacy. And as he said, I do describe myself as being hetero-celibate, which means that I'm not attracted to men, but I choose not to have sex with anybody. There are several reasons that went into making up that choice, but once upon a time I was deeply in favour of the free love, promiscuous, pleasure principle driven way of looking at sexuality, Earl. I grew up in the 1960s and 70s, and the pill hit the streets when I was in primary school. By the time I was in high school, condoms were considered fairly passé. We knew that penicillin had got rid of syphilis and gonorrhea. None of us had really heard of herpes or genital warts or chlamydia or pelvic inflammatory disease. Hepatitis B either hadn't been heard of or it was really rare. Hepatitis C hadn't come out. So there were all these factors of which we were unaware. And in the 60s and 70s, young men in Australia were thoroughly saturated in a Hollywoodised, I guess Hugh Hefnerised American version of what masculinity was supposed to be. I think Norman Mailer said that to the average young American recruit, you weren't really a man until you'd slept with somebody else's wife. And the idea of masculinity was tied up with this endless pursuit and conquest. And in my case, I was a sucker for it because I was an avid student of aviation history, and fighter pilots were expected to be sexually promiscuous because A, they were of good stock, and B, they knew they had a short life expectancy. And when people know they've got a short life expectancy, they tend to have a deep desire to procreate so that they don't shuffle off the mortal coil leaving nothing behind. Bunch of them want to grab whatever happiness they can get when they know they're in the grip of the machine. So as part of my fighter pilot fantasies, as much as being an immature adolescent dingbat, when I hit puberty I dived into sexuality, mate, big time. And I used to go around trying to ethically seduce sweet young things so that we both had a real good time physically, sensationally, in terms of chasing the variations of slippery friction. But I tried not to tell any lies. I didn't want to go, breaking any hearts by pretending to be in love with them. I wanted to have it understood that it was a casual relationship with no strings attached, just the most intense sex we could organise to have. And gradually, eventually, slowly over the years, I grew aware of the deficiency of that point of view. I got a lot of the chauvinism knocked out of me when I worked selling helicopter joyride tickets for Australia's first woman with a commercial helicopter licence. And then I went nursing. 5 years, 3 years of it a student nurse, in an environment where 50% of the nursing staff were male, 50% of the nursing staff were homosexual, so there were lots of lesbians, there were lots of gays, and there were lots of women in charge. And I learned how much women object to being seen by men as nothing but a set of sexual organs and a possibility of an encounter. I also learned how deeply sexuality is interwoven in human culture and human society. And by the time I'd finished nursing, I'd given up on the idea of having a casual, intense, physical relationship without having some kind of a possibility or hope for building an onwards and upwards happy ever after out of it. So I'd gone from trying to shag everything to trying to figure out who was worth having a shag with. And because the cosmic scoreboard works that way, as soon as I started thinking like that, I ran into what seemed to me at the time to be an ideal situation. A woman who said she was into windmills and aeroplanes and living off in the forest and growing vegetables, and she wanted to milk goats and ride horses and all the rest of it. Seemed the ideal woman. And we went off and had a thoroughly unhappy marriage. Separated about 19 years ago. And when I separated from the wife, I was sort of in a strange situation where an awful lot of blokes would have gone off looking for a rebound relationship, you know, to take the taste of failure out of their mouths. My attitude was that I'd just made a thoroughgoing mess of being a step-parent, no matter how hard I'd tried, and if I liked anybody enough that I wanted to take them to bed, there's no way I would inflict the position of being a step-parent on them, and I had kids. And that kept me on the straight and narrow for a couple of years. And I got, well, cat-napped, pussy-napped by a sweet young thing at a poetry reading. And coincidentally, in all kinds of other fields, straight away afterwards, my life turned to shit, and the kids' lives turned to shit. And it was like one night, and that was the turning point. And a few years down the track, it might have been 4 years down the track, I fell off the celibacy perch again. Drove away a couple of 100 miles, 250 miles, came back, got here 7 minutes before the ritual Sunday night phone call from the kids to learn that, you know, all sorts of things had gone awry in their lives. And it took another 2 years to sort stuff out. But in my personal experience, if I want my life to turn chaotic and stupid, then I go and exercise the desire that the end of my dick has for some slippery friction. And yeah, sure, I'd love a cuddle. Wouldn't it be nice if? But I had an awful lot of opportunities to live happily ever after, and I was so terribly fixated on the theory that if you want to fly aeroplanes, you got to stay away from women, because women want to have babies, and women with babies mean houses and expenses. And I knew an awful lot of people who'd not been able to fulfil their flying ambitions because they got, quote, sidetracked by women and families. So back when I was young, I was deliberately avoiding having a happily ever after. So, here I am at 52, and I've seen my wife, estranged wife, once in 10 years, and that was like a 5-second interlude that happened by mistake. But when you look at the messy little humpy that I live in, and you think about what sort of dysfunctional bag lady is going to look at me and see me as being a step up, and think how badly such an ornament could be up here, I personally, Earl, am absolutely overjoyed to say that I am a harmless old wanker. Because, mate, there is no fool like an old fool. And if I was a silly old foolish fucker, not only would I be making an idiot out of myself by inflicting a daddy's girlfriend fantasy onto my children, it would destabilise them, because they would suddenly have cut away the emotional prop that's been there all of their life, which is that if all else fails, you can turn to dad. Because they would have the possibility of, oh, I can't go near dad because he's busy chasing his girlfriend fantasy. And I've seen what it does to kids when they've got an emotional issue going on and they can't talk to their parent because the parent's busy making the new partner happy. So, yeah, for me, celibacy works just fine. And let's face it, to be not celibate, it would mean playing with somebody else's reproductive system, Earl. And I think to be serious about life, you'd have to be prepared to reproduce with somebody. Otherwise, why play with their reproductive system? As far as I'm aware, about 85% of the people who are alive in the world at the moment, they're here at the moment because of contraceptive failure on the day or the night in question. Their parents either didn't want to have a kid because they thought they were just having a casual fuck, or their parents wanted to have a kid at some point but not just at that, moment in their lives, and the contraceptives either weren't available or they didn't work. So, alright, either 5% are IVF and 10% are actually planned, or vice versa. The point is, for heterosexuals to be having sex, if they're of breeding age, it kind of makes sense to pick somebody that you could live together with happily to raise the hypothetical child that such a union may in fact produce. And that means, in my view, introducing sex to a relationship quite a long way down the track. Which is a really old-fashioned idea, and it's the exact opposite of what I used to do when I was young. Because like I said, I was a wicked, evil seducer of sweet young things. And therefore, I get to live alone. Life's like that. It's perfectly fair. Over the years, one of the things I worked out is that considering in the medical textbook in terms of body surface area and body mass for treating burns, a person's genitals, Earl, they make up 1% of a person's body mass. So they're kind of entitled to 1% of my energy and resources. And I know an awful lot of people who spend upwards of 60% of their time and energy and money and resources indulging their genitals, trying to look attractive so that the boyfriend or the husband will stay there, trying to have the right car and the right clothes so the girlfriend will be attracted. It's a huge amount, and well, because I don't have to try and make myself attractive for anybody, I'm not trying to hang on to anybody, I'm not trying to suck anybody into my lifestyle, I can save a huge amount of money and a huge amount of time, which I can redirect into other activities. I find it very restful being celibate. When you think about the hoops that you've got to jump through in order to have a partner in your life, where would I find time to have a girlfriend? But yeah, all jokes aside, it's a bit like, I think it was Groucho Marx said that he wouldn't want to be a member of any club that would be prepared to admit him, I don't want the kind of girlfriend that's open to me. I can imagine a much better one, you know, with my eyes closed, and I haven't got to feed it. So, there you go, Will. Sometimes the game is not worth the candle, and as far as I can see, chasing pussy is one of those games at this stage in my life. Young women are a young man's game, and I was a very low hound when I was running in the race, so I've got me just desserts. Kangaroos to talk to in the morning, no woman to squeeze all night. It's not too bad, actually. Pretty good bargain, I think. I hope that sheds a little bit of light on it for you all. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.